You don't realize when it happens. It never starts with a grand gesture. It starts with a tiny moment, a smile, a text, a little hit of validation from a woman you find attractive. And suddenly, a switch flips inside you. You start caring a little too much. You start checking your phone a little too often. You start becoming someone you're not, just to keep that attention coming. This is the story of how men fall into the female approval trap and lose themselves without even noticing. I remember sitting with a friend of mine, Jason. Confident guy, funny, smart, well-liked. But the moment he started talking to a girl he liked, he transformed into a completely different person. He started editing his messages 5 times before hitting send. He started agreeing with things he didn't believe in. He even changed his Spotify playlist because she doesn't like rap. I watched him slowly shrink, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And the saddest part, he didn't even see it happening. Because when you're in the approval trap, you don't think you're losing yourself. You think you're trying. You think you're being a good guy. You think you're putting in effort. But in reality, you are abandoning the most important thing in your life, yourself. The trap always begins the same way. A man notices a woman. She gives him a little spark, a compliment, a laugh, a little warmth. And instantly, his brain treats that validation like a reward. Suddenly, he's hooked. He starts chasing that feeling, craving it, needing it, not because he's weak, but because he's human. Men are raised to believe that winning female approval is the ultimate proof of worth. From movies to songs to society, the message is loud and clear. You matter, and when a woman chooses you, you're enough when a woman validates you. So men grow up thinking their value is something they must earn, perform for, work for, impress for. And women, most of them don't even know they hold this power. It's not intentional, it's psychological. But once a man falls into this mindset, the game changes. He stops living, he starts performing, he stops expressing, he starts pleasing. He stops being who he is. He starts being who he thinks she wants him to be. It's a slow process, but it's deadly. First, he gives small sacrifices, canceling plans with friends, changing his daily routines, adjusting his opinions just to avoid disagreement. Then the bigger sacrifices come. He stops focusing on his goals. He neglects his mental and physical health. He starts measuring himself only by her reactions. Her texts decide his mood. Her silence becomes his anxiety. Her approval becomes his oxygen. He doesn't realize it, but he's no longer living for himself. He's living for a scoreboard only she controls. And the truth nobody wants to say out loud? Women don't respect men who chase too hard. Not because they're cruel, but because neediness repels instinctively. When a man tries too hard to impress, he signals one thing: I'm not enough as I am. And the moment you give off that energy, everything changes. She starts pulling back. He starts chasing harder. She becomes the prize. He becomes the performer. This is the trap. A psychological loop where the more approval he seeks, the less he receives. I've seen this cycle ruin men, strong men, talented men, good men. Men who could have built careers, created art, followed dreams, but instead spent their energy proving themselves to someone who never asked them to. And the worst part? Most of these women move on easily. Not because they're heartless, but because they never asked the man to sacrifice everything for them. They liked him for who he was, but he stopped being that person. He became a shadow of himself, shaped by desperation instead of integrity. Men don't fall because women are dangerous. Men fall because they disconnect from their own identity. They replace self-respect with approval-seeking. They replace purpose with pursuit. They replace authenticity with performance. And so how do you break the trap? You stop chasing validation and start building value. A woman's approval feels good, that's human, but it should never be your foundation. Here's the truth. Men who don't need approval get it without asking. Because independence is attractive, confidence is magnetic, self-respect is irresistible. When a man stands firm in his identity, when he pursues life with purpose, when he knows that his worth doesn't rise or fall based on female attention, he becomes the kind of man women naturally gravitate toward. Not because he tries to impress them, but because he impresses by simply being himself. This is the irony of the approval trap. The less you need it, the more you receive it. So if you're a man listening to this, ask yourself, are you living for yourself or are you living for her reaction? Do you choose your path? Or do you choose what you think she'll like? Have you stood up for your values? Or have you traded them for a smile, a text, or a moment of attention because you deserve more than a life spent performing? You deserve a life built on your truth, not her validation. And here's the final truth. Women respect men who respect themselves. Not the loud macho act, not arrogance, not pretense. Just a man who knows who he is and doesn't bend his identity for temporary affection. A man like that never falls into the trap. Because he doesn't chase approval, he attracts connection. Not by losing himself, but by owning himself fully. In the end, the female approval trap is not about women. It's about you, your identity, your purpose, your sense of self. The moment you stop seeking permission to exist, you start living. And the world, including the women you once tried so hard to impress, begins to see you for who you truly are. A man who is whole on his own, unshaken, uncompromised, unapologetically himself. That is the man who never loses himself again.